it was announced today on October 25th, when we're recording this, that GameStop originally tried it in New York and in the Louisiana area, accepting
Permit.
trade-ins on retro games that they were selling online to various degrees of success. And now they decided to go nationwide, accepting trade-ins for retro games at every store. Wow.
I think they may have been slowly rolling this out to other stores. I think it was Birmingham, Alabama, where they and New York where they started it. And I think they had been slowly trying to roll it out to some other locations. Anyway, it is interesting that they've rolled it out nationwide. Apparently, it's been doing well enough for them. I don't know. I don't have a huge opinion on it, honestly. The prices are okay, but not ultra competitive. I still think it's GameStop dipping their hand in too many piles, and I don't know. I just don't know how exactly this will work out for them, other than I still don't know in the long run how they're going to beat eBay, conventions, other online retailers. The only thing that I can think of is people who want to trade in new games and use credit for old games if they don't have, say, a local video game store, like an independent one that deals in everything. But, their track record, hasn't necessarily been great. Granted, a lot of that has probably been amplified by the stories online. But it's an interesting move. Now, what they're...
Fucking son of a bitch.
I'm David Hatfield, and this is IGN News. GameStop COO Tony Bartel has commented on new or upgraded...
God damn it. Sorry.
So...
Let's reverse 30 seconds.
So, what they've expanded... So, they're going to be taking Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Color, all the systems that they've been taking.
New ones, Saturn.
And anywhere now, so you can trade those in, but it's still online only. But they push this in-store thing where you can go in store and they will guide you through the process of ordering online. It's still not purchasable in store, and I understand why they don't. GameStops are incredibly tiny shoe boxes for the most part. They can't display this stuff among everything else. It would be a nightmare for the workers. Now, it's not impossible. I mean, a place like Luna and other places like us do display everything, but it is kind of a nightmare, and I've always said you have to be nimble and know what you're doing to be able to do that. But I just don't see a huge return on this for them if you don't offer the convenience of being able to walk into a GameStop and pick up a Super Nintendo. I don't see how this is going to affect them hugely in the long run. It's not going to generate enough profit necessarily to help them. I don't know. You always hear about how GameStop's in financially dire straits, and I don't know that this is necessarily going to turn things around.
Well, it's going to sap the supply of retro games even more. And we're going to talk about that in a later topic that's somewhat related. So you're going to have this taking out, because let's face it, this isn't like a mom and pop shop that can advertise, just locally. Hey, come in and trade your games. This is a national chain that say, hey, they have the biggest exposure on the internet. Hell, they can run TV fucking ads saying, now bring us your retro games if they want to. This is a potential to be like, not a watershed moment for retro games being traded in, but this will definitely up the ante if they have a campaign to do this. The question is if they're going to keep all these games out of circulation for a certain amount of time before putting them back in. This would be a massive amount of games that can come in versus a couple of errors or even a few more that they tested. If you're talking the 1,000 or so plus GameStop stores that are out there, and all of a sudden you have all these, 100 times the amount of games coming in than before, they got to all come in. They got to get tested by their crack shot team which will take a huge amount of time and then dealt with and distributed. So this is a logistics issue. This isn't just the games coming out of circulation. Is when do they get put back in and how?
Well, and we've also talked about previously, and that's where I thought you were going, but you made a good point. But to bring it back up again, this is not a company that's necessarily been known for preservation. When they started running out of space for DS games, they started just tossing the boxes and manuals. If a game comes, what do they do if this doesn't work for them? How do they clearance this out? Are they going to dumpster this? I mean, what are they going to do? And that's kind of that's disconcerting to me. Is are they going to take a large number of games out of circulation? And what happens if this doesn't work?
Yeah, so you have let's say Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Color, regular Game Boy, right? Dreamcast, Saturn, GameCube, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation, Xbox, and the original NES. That's the vast majority of retro systems that are popular to collect for this point. There's no TurboGrafx, which has been on the rise the past few years, and even they don't care about Atari 2600, ColecoVision, or that era. Be prepared to see I think depending on how many people trade these in, I don't know. You can look at it two ways. You can look at it as the market getting potentially deprived of games that could be going to mom and pop shops or eBay, and then stuck in a warehouse for 2 years, never to see the light of day, or maybe you'll see them eventually. Or you can have a deluge of these games coming in that people wouldn't be maybe trustworthy to sell on themselves or wouldn't have the time into GameStop, and they find an efficient way to distribute them, and then maybe prices come down because people aren't buying those games they'd be looking for on eBay at a GameStop or online. I don't know. But I'm leaning towards the fact that this is not good.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting to see what happens on our end. To see if this affects the amount of games we get in. Now, I'd be interested in seeing what GameStop offers. I mean, we'll just have to see. Generally, a lot of the GameStop employees in this area will casually send people our way for all sorts of things because, frankly, we give better credit and better cash than they do. So maybe it won't affect us. Maybe it will. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but it will be a bummer if we start seeing less stock come in.
And speaking of GameStop and bad news of retro games, another tale of the reproduction counterfeit game, Ian. This comes to you from Reddit, the game collecting Reddit, which I really should go on more. And it's entitled, "So GameStop repro'd me again." Facepalm. So it seems this person ordered a Mega Man 5 and received it. And just looking at the label, you can tell, ooh, that's a really dark, saturated, oversaturated label.
It's gross. It's
and then opens it up, and you have a nicely, looks like EEPROM, badly soldered board there.
It's like triple wrapped wire.
So, where can you go from this besides the fact that we're mentioned in the Reddit.
I just noticed
that on this Reddit page. That's so funny. There's no testing being done. We're going to reiterate this just because we just spoke about it. Another topic, the fact that nationwide you're going to have a field day happening. People making these, either making cheap reproduction cards or most likely buying them for $10 on AliExpress and flooding the market via GameStop with these games.
Yeah, if it's nationwide and they're not doing any testing in store, and even if they are doing testing in store, which they wouldn't, but I mean, they're not. I mean, if the people can't determine a repro label from a real label, I mean, they would really need. God, this is just so awful now. The more I think about this nationwide thing, yeah, it's just gonna be bad. And I mean, I already do when like people come in with shady stuff, but I mean, it's like when people come in with repro stuff, like I call the local GameStops and I'm like, hey, there's a dude who's coming around with like I'm gonna have to start calling the GameStops and being like, okay, there's a guy with 10 bootleg Pokemon games.
Jesus Christ! But they don't have any incentive to not take it, because it's not like your store where you can affect the bottom line. They're a store out of 1,000 stores. It doesn't.
Well, I guess it
they don't
depends
save.
on. I guess it depends on if they track the stuff. Yeah, but by then it's probably too late.
I guess they're gonna have to have a specific tracking number for each game copy that comes in with a person's license, because let's face it, if someone comes in with a stadium events and they're accepting a game that's that valuable, and it looks like they are accepting games so far that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, if they decide to accept a game like stadium events, which is worth thousands and thousands, and if someone is trying to swindle them, that's a felony. Trying to sell a counterfeit item like that to trade it in. So this is something GameStop has to really take seriously if they want this to be a nationwide endeavor and really have it be successful.
This totally looks like an AliExpress one too. Like, it doesn't even look like there's screws on the back. It looks like it was slapped together with glue.
You're right. You can see the hole in the middle there. It's
Plastic.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a good counterfeit at all.
Yeah. So be prepared, Ian, for, I don't know, 15,000 more of these stories in the coming year or two.
Yeah.